Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3831A, and today's date is February 2nd, 2026, and the title of the episode is China Says the Quiet Part Out Loud. Did the central bank time the decline of gold and silver? Now, the rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting, warning, or wishing. They are acting, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. While everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioning. The understanding that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit X22Gold.com and download your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. The rules are changing. Make sure you are ready. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum. You can see with everything that Trump is doing right now, you could see the deep state, the central bankers, their panic. Remember, they wanted to control how we moved into the Great Reset. They already set up China to be the reserve currency of the world, and they were preparing the entire world by going into the Green New Scam. They wanted the U.S. to use solar and wind. They wanted Europe to use solar and wind. They wanted Australia, New Zealand, all the other countries to use solar and wind. And you know that China was going to be the manufacturing hub. They were going to be using nuclear, coal, gas, you name it, everything else except for solar and wind. Now, it doesn't mean they might not have solar and wind in certain areas of the country, but to produce and to manufacture, they were going to use coal, gas, and nuclear, while the rest of the world was going to use solar and wind where they wouldn't be able to produce anything. And I think the deep state players, the central bankers, they planned on this. Remember, going back to the year 2020, around March or so, they planned the Great Reset. And they told everyone about it. They told everyone that's where we're headed. And yes, they wanted to shift everything during that period of time. And they wanted China to be the reserve currency. That would be the digital yuan. And the rest of the world would have to fall in line. And this is what they were planning from the very beginning. And you could see at this point in time, with everything that Trump is doing right now, he's pushing the central bankers to speed up and accelerate their plan, because what they're seeing right now and what they're experiencing is that they're losing their grip over the economic system. Remember, step by step, Trump is, number one, showing the people that the Green New Scam doesn't work. Number two, showing the people that wind and solar and everything else does not work. Number three, showing everyone that we're moving away from the globalist central bank system. So what do the central bankers do? Well, they have to accelerate their plan, because remember, they were planning on a Great Reset. They were planning to go down the Green New Scam. They were planning to go down this path. That's what they were doing. And now their Great Reset didn't work the way they thought it was going to work, because remember, they went ahead with the pandemic. Remember, there's different agendas with the pandemic. Number one, they had to get rid of Trump, so they had to cheat in the election. That's number one. That's why they used the pandemic. Number two, they wanted to depopulate. That's why they went ahead and they introduced the bioweapon. And they used it, and this is why no one used ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and the rest, because they wanted people to suffer and they wanted people to stay indoors. They wanted people to die over time. That was their plan. This is how they were going to have depopulation. And by the time they were ready to introduce the new economic system, there'd be hardly anyone left. No one would really care. The entire economic system would completely and utterly crash, and that would be that. Remember, their original plan was a war. Now, they're back to a war. They're back to pushing that. And you can see that China right now, Xi Jinping, he's already out there letting everyone know that China's currency should be the reserve currency of the world. So it's basically what we all thought it was going to be. And now it's coming true. They're saying the quiet part out loud because, again, they have no choice, because we're heading down this path, the path they do not want. Remember, Trump pretty much took their system. He pushed it aside, brought in the tariff system, brought in the energy system, brought in the technology system, brought in the gold card system, and is creating a parallel economic system which is competing with their entire system. And they're losing every step of the way. And now, since Warsh is coming into play, he's going to do everything opposite of what Powell was doing, which is very, very interesting. So remember, to transition from a central bank system, you just can't flip the switch and say, okay, everyone, the currency that you're holding today, well, it's worth nothing. We're going to start transitioning. You know what would happen? There'd be chaos. It would be a disaster. You don't want to do what the central bankers wanted to do. So what you have to do is you have to slowly transition the country. Number one, you got to set up your parallel economic system. You got to destroy the globalist system. You got to reroute the trade. You got to bring in the tariff money. You got to set everything up so you have a system prepared and ready to go. Then you bring in the person that you want to run the central bank system. And that person will start to restructure the entire system and get it prepared and ready. So when we transition, it doesn't hurt the people. And we can actually keep the country operational, which I do believe this is exactly what Trump and the Patriots are doing. And you could see as soon as they mentioned, or Trump mentioned, Kevin Warsh, what happened? It triggered a sell-off of gold and silver, and all of a sudden Bitcoin started to come down. And think about why this is. I think the deep state players, the central bankers, they were waiting for something to bring the gold, silver, and crypto market down. And it might not be for the reasons that you think, because once again, they see the writing on the wall. They see the direction that we're heading in. And if you want to get into the market, what do? You bring everything down. Now, they were probably hoping that this would scare a lot of people. They would just sell off like crazy and the whole thing would just collapse under the weight, just like they did during the beginning of COVID when George Soros said the market is overheating, and they basically sold and sold and sold, and they tried to bring the market down. Was this what they were trying to do here in the crypto market, in the gold market, in the silver market? Most likely, yes. But actually, when you start to look at this, you start to realize, well, wait a minute. I wanted to get in the gold market. I wanted to get in the silver. I wanted to get in the crypto. And if this keeps going down a little bit, this is going to give me the chance to actually get into it. So actually, if people look at this, it could work the opposite way. You see, they want people to be afraid. They want people to sell off. They want people to do all these things. But a lot of people today, they might be thinking, well, I was waiting for it to drop a little bit. I didn't want to get in the highs. I didn't want to, I didn't know where this was going to go. So this actually gives me the opportunity to get in. So a lot of people might be thinking this way. And what we're going to see is, I do believe we're going to see gold, silver, and crypto start to move up again. I mean, again, I do believe in the direction that we're heading, where Trump is now destroying the globalist system, destroying the central bank system, actually restructuring it, bringing the person that he wants into it. I do believe all of this is being set up to bring us back to the Constitution and bring us back to sound money. And we could see that everything that Trump has done right now, he has removed everything that they've been trying to do, where they were trying to bring us into the Great Reset. They're trying to bring us into the Green New Scam. It's all being reversed right in front of our eyes, right in front of their eyes. And when you look at the Green New Scam and you look at wind and solar, every single time something bad happens, it shows the people why you can't depend on wind and solar. Ryan Maui put this out and said, report, Texas renewables ghosted the state during extreme weekend cold. Wind, solar, and batteries fell from briefly supplying approximately 63% of generation to approximately 7% within roughly 48 hours. So basically what we saw was gas, natural gas, coal, and nuclear. They were providing the most of the state's electricity during this period of time. And this should tell you everything you need to know about what the deep state players were trying to do. And you could see they were trying to force us into a system that wouldn't really work for us. If there was any type of disaster, if there was cold, if anything like that, it would not work the way you think it was going to work. And this is why out in Texas, they were dependent on natural gas, dependent on coal, dependent on nuclear. They couldn't be dependent on wind and solar. So that's why Trump ended everything. Because you have to remember, they were trying to bring us to a place where the people really didn't want to go. This is what they wanted to happen. But right now, you could see that it is not happening. And China, and Xi Jinping, says that, yeah, the yuan should be the reserve currency of the world. Because I do believe that's what everything was set up to be. Where they wanted the yuan, the digital yuan, to be the reserve currency of the world. But think about it. Everything that Trump did and is doing, this will not happen. So basically, Trump countered everything that they were trying to do. And as of right now, China is not going to be the reserve currency of the world. Their plan has been flushed down the toilet. Now, the rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting, warning, or wishing. They are acting, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. While everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioning. The understanding that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit X22Gold.com and download your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. The rules are changing. Make sure you are ready. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. And think about what Trump is doing now to compete with China. Remember, they set everything up where they had the rare earth minerals to build the solar panels, to build the electrical cars, to build the batteries, to build almost everything. So right now, the Trump administration is preparing to launch a major initiative aimed at protecting U.S. manufacturers from disruption in the supply of critical minerals, committing about $12 billion in initial funding to build a strategic stockpile of essential materials. The project, known as Project Vault, is designed to reduce America's dependence on China for rare earth and other strategically important metals by creating a centralized reserve for civilian industries. Officials hope to cushion companies against sudden shortages and sharp prices swing that can disrupt production and strain finances. So right now, you could see that everything is about to change. And what's very interesting is that Project Vault will be financed through a mix of private and public funding. $1.67 billion is expected to come from private investors, while the U.S. Export-Import Bank is set to provide a $10 billion loan with a 15-year term. The bank's board is scheduled to vote on the deal, which would be the largest in history. More than a dozen major companies have joined Project Vault, including General Motors, Stellantis, Boeing, Corning, GE Vernova, and Google. 3 large trading firms, Hartree Partners, Traxys North America, and Mercuria Energy will handle sourcing and purchasing materials for the stockpile. Geiger Capital put this out and said, Trump launches $12 billion mineral stockpile to counter China. No one could have seen this coming. So the stockpile will include rare earths and critical minerals used in products such as iPhones, batteries, and jet engines, and is expected to help reduce the U.S. reliance on Chinese rare earths and other metals. So basically, you can see that we're drilling for oil, so we're not dependent on oil from any other place. We're going to have rare earth stockpile, so we're not dependent on anybody else. And you can see what Trump is doing right now. He's setting it up so the United States of America is now independent from all of these globalist areas. So this way, we're never dependent on anything, especially if we ever are in a war or anything like that. So if we're self-sustaining, what does that mean? That means whatever happens around the world, it doesn't really affect us that much. Plus, if, or when we actually drill, because that's what we're going to be doing here, we're going to be drilling for oil, fuel prices are going to go down. As we mine the rare earths, well, those materials are going to go down in price. And remember, we need time to get things set up. So by setting stockpiles up, by bringing the fuel prices very low, and by refilling the strategic oil reserves and giving the oil producers time, this allows the country to be completely and utterly independent. And eventually what's going to happen is, as all this builds up and all these things come online, we will be self-sufficient, just in time to restructure the Federal Reserve, bring it into the Treasury, and basically go back to sound money. Think about what is happening right now. Trump is building the parallel economic system. He's building a system that's going to compete with the central bank. And every day that passes, you could see it's getting better and better and better. Stephen Moore put this out and said, Kevin Warsh for Fed chair is a home run. Unlike Powell, Warsh rejects inflation myth, the Phillips curve, and government money printing as growth. Time to defend the dollar and restore real wages. So no more printing money for growth. That is very interesting. So what is the inflation myth? Oh, that everything else causes inflation except for printing money and putting more currency into circulation? Yeah, everything is about to change. Peter Sangong put this out and said, Trump's new Fed chair is inflation hawk Kevin Warsh, which sent gold and silver plunging. Warsh wants a Main Street boom paid for by Wall Street pain. In other words, the exact opposite of Jerome Powell. Absolutely. So think about this. We saw the metals go down. Bitcoin is now down. And do you really believe that all of a sudden, because Kevin Warsh was announced, that everything just started to collapse? Or was this planned in a certain way? Was it manipulated? Were they looking for a trigger to pile in? Most likely, yes. Or were they looking for a trigger so people would start to sell like crazy and bring the gold, silver, and crypto markets way, way down? Now, I don't think this is going to be permanent. What I think is going to happen, yes, these things are going to drop. And then eventually when people start to learn who Kevin Warsh is, when people start to realize where all of this is headed, you're going to see gold and silver and Bitcoin really start to move. You're going to see it start to pick up like you did before. And actually, this gives people a little bit of a breathing room, because those people that didn't want to get into the precious metals, those people that couldn't get into crypto, it gives them the opportunity to do this. And I do believe most people are probably going to buy more of it. Maybe they'll be those that are scared and they'll run and things like that. That always happens. But eventually, when you look at the trajectory over time, you step back and you take a 40,000 foot view, I do believe that, yes, this will start to move up once again, especially when you start to see Kevin Warsh start to lower the rates dramatically, when you start to see restructuring within the Fed, when you see that the Fed goes along with what Trump wants to do here. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see something very, very different. And when people start to see this, this is when everything changes. I think what Trump is doing right now, he's preparing the entire system. And the only way to do this is you need someone inside to restructure it. You need someone inside to balance both sides. Because remember, we're transitioning from one system to another. I mean, when you go back to 1971, you had the deep state players. They set up a new system, which was the petrodollar system. They went to the Middle East. The forces were brought out there. I'm talking about the military. They were there to protect the oil. They said you must sell the oil using the dollar or the Federal Reserve note. And that's what these countries did. And when everything was set up, what did they do? They flipped a switch. And they said, or Nixon said, we're going to leave the gold standard because of speculators. And remember, this is only temporary. I mean, we're still off the gold standard, and it's been over 50 years. I don't think this is temporary. I think this is permanent. This is exactly what they wanted. But, of course, they lied. And remember the stories that they told everyone during this period of time. As we were moving from the gold standard to the petrodollar system, they told everyone there are shortages of oil. We can't find oil anywhere. That's why the prices are going up. It was one gigantic lie. And what happened during this period of time? When they abruptly switched us over to their system, there were recessions. There were gas lines. Out in the UK, there were blackouts. Many other countries were suffering. They didn't care. This time around, what I do believe Trump is doing, instead of just throwing the switch and saying, okay, we're going to be leaving the old system, going to the new system, or we're going to crash the old system and everyone's going to suffer, I do believe he wants to restructure everything to get it as smooth as possible to transfer from one system to another. And you have to do this step by step. Can you imagine if we just shut down the central bank right now and we move to a new system? The world would be in chaos right now. It would be a complete and utter disaster. Because you have to remember, most of the countries are not prepared for this. And it would probably bring this country into a recession somehow, some way, because people would panic. But if you do it slowly, methodically, you put all the pieces in place and you restructure everything so you could slowly move the system over piece by piece, it makes it that much better for the people. And I do believe this is exactly what Trump and the Patriots are doing right now. And yes, I do believe that the currencies like gold and silver and Bitcoin, I do believe these are going to start to move once again. Now, it might take a couple of weeks, but I do believe in the end, we're going to see much higher prices than we did before, because we have to remember everything is pegged to the U.S. or the Federal Reserve note. And think about the Federal Reserve note has lost value over time since 1971, since we came off the gold standard. I mean, we're looking at 3,000% inflation. If you reverse that, the value of the currency has lost value about 98%. So if you really look at it, it's worth pretty much nothing at this point in time when you compare it to gold, silver, and Bitcoin. That's why you're looking at this and you're saying, why are these things going up? Can you imagine if they allowed gold and silver back in the day to rise as the fiat currency lost its value? People would understand exactly what was going on. And people would say, well, the reason why gold is continually moving up because it's a hedge against a fiat currency. Fiat currency is continually losing value. And that's why we see all of this. People would wake up very quickly. People would understand what was going on. So what did they have to do? They had to create the paper market, and they had to pretend and keep the illusion alive that gold, well, it's worth absolutely nothing. And think about this. If you go back to 1971 when it came off the gold standard, when was the gold futures market created? 1974. Think about why they did it. Think about why they had to control the price of gold. Now, if you go back a little bit in time, going back to 1913, in the 30s, they created the silver futures market. Because remember, back then, people had silver certificates. That means if you look at the currency back then, you would see that you can exchange those pieces of paper for silver. So those were actually US dollars or silver certificates back then, and it slowly moved over to be the Federal Reserve note. And then when we came off the gold standard in 1971, in 1974, all of a sudden the gold futures market was created to control the price of gold. So now we're just reversing everything that they did. And Trump now is preparing for all of this. And again, we're not going to do it like the deep state, like the central bankers. We're going to do it so people aren't hurt. We're going to do it like we can go back to sound money without destroying the system. And I do believe this is where all of this is headed. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.